Welcome to the news on NTA International. My name is Frama Panyi, and the sign language interpreter is Courage Ogerahi. Now the headlines. Nigeria's First Lady launches renewed Hope Initiative project to accelerate birth registration. President Tinubu departs Abuja for Beijing, China on official visit. Plus, United Nations Deputy Secretary General visits Sudan to shore up humanitarian efforts. And now the news in full. President Bola Tinubu on Thursday urged the newly appointed Brazilian ambassador to Nigeria, Carlos Jose Arias, to prioritize the establishment of direct flights between Nigeria to Brazil. Receiving the letter of credence from the Brazilian ambassador, President Tinubu reiterated his discussions with President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil on the matter in February on the margins of the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The president expressed Nigeria's commitment to working closely with Brazil to strengthen bilateral relations and advance shared priorities, welcoming the country's presidency of the G20 in 2024. On his part, Ambassador Arias said President Lula is looking forward to welcoming President Tinubu to the G20 Leaders Summit scheduled for November 18 and 19, 2024 in Rio de Janeiro. He also conveyed President Lula's invitation to Nigeria to join the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty. President Bola Tinubu has departed Abuja for Beijing, China on Thursday on an official visit. The president will have a brief layover in the United Arab Emirates. In China, the president will meet with President Xi Jinping and will hold meetings with Chinese business leaders on the sidelines of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. President Tinubu will be accompanied by senior government officials on the trip. And 20 Nigerian students have been offered scholarships to study at European School of Management and Technology in Berlin, Germany. A statement by the media aide to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Al-Qasim Abdulkadir, says Yusuf Tugar accepted the scholarship program when he was hosted to a special dinner organized in his honor by Lars Windhorst, a German entrepreneur and co-founder of Sapinder Groups and owner of the fashion company La Perla in Berlin, Germany. Tugar thanked Lars Windhorst for the gesture, and he says the scholarship will create an opportunity for shared learning experiences in enhancing the skills of the beneficiaries needed for Nigeria's development drive. The Foreign Affairs Minister reciprocated the gesture by extending an invitation to the German partners to come and invest in Nigeria by highlighting the joint strides taken by President Bola Tinubu to reposition Nigeria and create an economic haven for foreign investors. He stressed that Nigeria holds enormous investment opportunities that include macroeconomic reforms the Tinubu administration has embarked upon, particularly the removal of subsidy on petroleum motor spirit and the unification of the exchange rates to boost the economy. Tugar also emphasizes the need for the global north to invest in infrastructure development in Africa and not to dwell on geopolitical considerations. The ESMNT Berlin is a non-profit private institution of higher education founded in 2002 by 25 leading global companies, offers a variety of programs including master's, MBA and PhD programs, as well as executive education. European Union foreign ministers are in Brussels to discuss Ukraine, Gaza and Venezuela with Kyiv, pushing for restrictions to be lifted on using donated long-range weapons against targets inside Russia. And United Nations Deputy Secretary General visits Sudan to bolster humanitarian efforts in the war-torn country. Comfort Fashion tells us more.
EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell said on Thursday that he will urge the bloc's 27 member states to back sanctions on Israeli ministers accused of fomenting hatred towards Palestinians. Speaking at a foreign ministers' meeting in Brussels, Borrell said the individuals targeted had made statements that go clearly against international law and is an incitement to commit war crimes. Borrell's sanctions proposal has little chance of success, with EU states divided since the October 7, 2023 attack on Israel by Hamas-led militants and Israel's retaliatory assaults on the Gaza Strip. Hungary, Austria, and the Czech Republic are among the EU countries that defend Israel's right to self-defense, blocking any attempt at tough measures targeting the Israeli government.
That we need to keep on insisting, of course, on a ceasefire, the unconditional release of all hostages and the return of the remains to their loved ones in Israel.
European sanctions involve a ban on travelling to the bloc and the seizure of assets held within the EU. And now to Sudan, where the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Amina Mohammed, arrived that country to meet with top Sudanese officials and bolster humanitarian efforts in the war-torn country. The conflict in Sudan, which erupted in April 2023, has claimed the lives of tens of thousands, displacing millions. It has led to one of the world's worst humanitarian crises, with several areas facing famine, according to the United Nations. The situation in Sudan has been further compounded with a flood which is ravaging the country and the burst of Albert Dam, which is the major source of water for Port Sudan and its environs. The flood completely washed away 20 villages and damaged 50 others. However, the United Nations reported a total number of 38 trucks that has crashed, carrying about 1,250 tons of aid, targeting 119,000 people across the vast Darfur region, where over 5 million people are internally displaced. Comfort, fashion, NTA News.
In Spanish, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is in Senegal for an event showcasing collaborative projects at the 70th Institute in the country's capital, Dakar, on the third and final leg of his 3-day tour of West Africa. Sanchez affirms his determination to combat the criminal network that traffics in human beings between Africa and the Canaries. Again, Comfort Fashion completes the report.
First visiting Gambia, Sanchez is now in Senegal as part of a 3-day tour of West Africa to tackle irregular migration. It is the first time a Spanish prime minister has visited a small country of 2.7 million inhabitants. The Spanish prime minister began his tour in Mauritania on Tuesday, where he announced that Spain will expand its circular migration program to Mauritanians and renew cooperation between the two nations' security forces to combat human smuggling and trafficking networks. He continued his tour going south to Gambia on Wednesday and then to Senegal.
África es un continente repleto de potencial. Significa decir futuro.
Sanchez said during a conference in Senegal that he was a strong advocate for migration, but also stressed that security is a top priority. He added, and I quote, "We are living in a complex context. We are all aware of this, marked by the growing pressure of outflows along the Atlantic route. And in this scenario, I insist that my government and Spain are committed to the continuity and strengthening of our bilateral relations." End of quote. Reports say among those making it to the Canaries are thousands of Malian refugees fleeing violence and instability in the Sahelian nation, as well as youth from Senegal, Mauritania, and other West African countries who are seeking better job opportunities abroad. There are also increasingly more teenagers and children traveling along to the Canary Island, which has overwhelmed the local governments responsible for their care. The three coastal nations have become the main departure points of migrants trying to reach the Canary Island, a Spanish archipelago located close to the African coast and used as a stepping stone for migrants and refugees trying to reach continental Europe. More than 22,000 people have disembarked on its shores since January, according to Spain's interior minister, and that's double the number of irregular arrivals for the same period last year. Comforts Fashim, NTA News.
Now, the Minister of State for Water Resources and Sanitation, Bello Muhammad Goronyo, has reiterated Nigeria's commitment to improving water, sanitation and hygiene sector. The minister stated in a keynote address at the ongoing 2024 World Water Week in Stockholm, Sweden, with the theme, Bridging Borders Water for a Peaceful and Sustainable Future. The week focuses on advancing global efforts in water, sanitation and hygiene, WASH, and will provide a platform for Nigeria to share its progress and ongoing commitment to improving WASH standards nationwide. The Minister of State emphasized Nigeria's efforts in prioritizing water, sanitation and hygiene at the highest political level, making reference to the Presidential Executive Order No. 9 issued in 2019 and launch of the Clean Nigeria Use the Toilet campaign aimed at ending open defecation by 2025. He described the campaign as crucial in safeguarding the health, dignity and well-being of Nigerians, particularly in rural areas where access to sanitation facilities remain limited. He stressed that the federal government under the President Tinubu administration has continued to show commitment to achieving SDGs 6.1 and 6.2 targets for WASH, with a steering committee for the campaign to end open defecation in Nigeria, chaired by the Vice President Kashim Shettima. Now, in view of dynamics of climate change, which makes the nature of disasters unpredictable, especially annual flooding, disaster correspondents are keying into the emerging challenges of disaster reportage. In the light of this, correspondents from different media organizations are undergoing a training on effective reportage of disaster and emergency issues in Nigeria, organized by International Emergency Management Society. Ilyasu Yakubu reports.
The training targets 3 key areas of crisis communication strategies, navigating misinformation and public perception during emergencies, as well as understanding disaster risk reduction and management. Above all, building resilience through the media is the role of journalism in shaping public perception and behavior during emergencies. A Vice Marshal Audubidda, convener of the workshop, emphasized the need for disaster correspondents to be wary of fake news and fact-checked for effective reportage of disaster and emergency issues in Nigeria.
Unfortunately, we have societies that are not very informed about not only reporting or disaster handling or something. We have societies that are completely ignorant of their environment, what is even happening around them.
Resource persons who examine the mode of disaster reportage stress the need to empathize with the victims while reporting. Some participants speak.
The training has been instrumental. It has widened my horizon in disaster reportage.
The training has actually impacted my knowledge as a journalist. It has widened my horizons.
Latest record from the 2024 flood devastation shows that 526,703 persons were affected. 79,138 houses destroyed and 106,178 farmlands washed away and 175 lives lost so far. In Abuja, Ilyasu Yakubu, NTA News.
Nigeria's First Lady Oluremi Tinubu has called for a strategic shift in the registration of significant life events such as birth registration for every Nigerian child, for them to have a name and nationality recognized under the law. She made the call at the official launch of the Renewed Hope Initiative project to accelerate birth registration at scale in the country. State House correspondent Adeni Taiwo reports.
Infants and little babies are unusual guests at the banquet hall of the presidential villa. But here they are, joined by stakeholders who are critical to ramping up birth registration in Nigeria, including traditional rulers, wives of state governors, local government administrators, and development partners. The occasion official launch of the Renewed Hope Initiative commemorative birth registration seeks to accelerate civil registration of children in the country by mobilizing political commitment and leadership for the cause. Despite achieving 68% completeness in birth registration of children under 5 years old in 2023, a situation where only 50.3% daily life birth of children are registered is unsatisfactory for Nigeria's First Lady, Oluremi Tinubu.
This is more than an administrative task. It provides the foundation of our social security. Our children, the treasure of our nation, should be guaranteed their rights and privileges from the onset. A well-functioning civil registration and vital statistics safeguards these rights and ensures no violation goes unnoticed.
While presenting the commemorative birth certificate to children at the ceremony, the First Lady also highlights the significance of the exercise for national planning, realization of sustainable development goals, and fundamental human rights of the Nigerian child.
Birth registration is vital. It is the child's legal proof of identity as a Nigerian, without which children will not be fully recognized by the government. They could miss out on government's provision on health care, education, and other social amenities. Without a birth certificate, children will be unable to prove their age, and this puts them at a great disadvantage. I therefore encourage all parents to register the birth of their children, obtain authentic birth certificates recognized by the government.
By protecting the right of every child through legal recognition, we are safeguarding them from exploitation, trafficking, and abuse.
To our esteemed state governors and their first ladies, your role is vital to implementing this initiative at the state level.
Together, we can ensure that every child is accounted for and given the identity they definitely deserve.
As traditional rulers, we are closer to our people.
For traditional rulers and other strategic partners, the launch is another positive step forward in their advocacy to scale up civil registration in the country. Live birth registration of children by National Population Commission is one of the highlights of the launch. From the banquet hall of the Presidential Villa, Adeniyi Taiwo, NTA News.
And we will pause here, take a short break, but we will return in a moment with more news.
Is coming. More wages, reduced costs. Nigeria's national minimum wage is now 70,000 naira and it will be reviewed every 3 years. The federal government will commence immediate implementation and state governments are being encouraged to follow suit. With the presidential CNG initiative, transport costs are coming down. Are you a car owner or a transporter? Visit www.pci.gov.ng to find out how you can benefit from switching to CNG. This is the Renewed Hope.
Welcome back. Now, a delegation of the Pan-African Agency for the Great Green Wall is in Nigeria to ascertain the operational framework of the agency in Nigeria and how it is aligning with the UN Convention and Resurrection Agenda 2030. Charles Alpha reports.
The convention that brought about the establishment of National Agency for the Great Green Wall in Africa has addressing land degradation as one of its primary objectives. It demands that countries that are signatory to the convention maintain certain institutional and operational framework. The Pan-African Agency has 11 member countries having operated for years. The agency is in Nigeria as part of mission to ensure member countries are operating in harmony and in line with the purpose they were established.
They needed to see the institutional structure, the organizational structure, and as well as the technical structure.
We need to come up with intervention that will assist in terms of improving Nigeria's vegetation cover.
International organizations such the UNCCD are involved in this because of the importance of this ideal.
The Great Green Wall in Nigeria was established by an act, and the Director General Saleh Abubakar affirms Nigeria has all the institutional framework in place and on track with the United Nations Resurrection Agenda of 2030.
The mandate is in line with the Pan-African Great Green Wall mandate. So it's like a fusion, kind of. We are starting from one point, meeting the other point, and then the Pan-African is like the mother organization overseeing all of us.
The delegation will be interacting with the Minister of Environment, Balarabe Abbas Lawal, Akrisal, Energy Commission, and more to drive partnership. Charles Alpha, NTA News.
And Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, has urged secretaries of state governments to explore innovative solutions to enhance policy coordination and implementation in their various states. This was at the first meeting between the SGF and secretaries of state governments. The SGF notes that the theme for the program, which is improving policy coordination and implementation for national development, the roles of secretaries to the government of the state, is timely and critical to the nation's growth. Effective policy coordination and implementation, he says, are essential for achieving set goals in national development. Former Senate President
than ever, as Nigeria navigates a complex array of social, economic, environmental, and security challenges, it is imperative that we take clear, unified action across all levels of government.
Policy implementation and the rules.
Pius Pius and other speakers emphasized the importance of synergy and cooperation between the national and subnational entities to foster harmony and development. Now, the Director General of the National Agency for the Prohibition in Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP, Bintalami Adomobello, has promised effective coordination and full enforcement of all national instruments and counter-trafficking policies to minimize the incidences of human trafficking in the country, in line with the Renew Hope agenda of President Bola Tinubu. She says policies shall be strengthened, efforts strategized, and officers of the agency motivated and stimulated to work hard to justify the confidence reposed on NAPTIP by the entire nation. The new Director General of NAPTIP had previously served as Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Women Affairs, Health and Aviation. She had also worked as a Director at NAPEP and the Ministry of Finance, among others. Bintalami Adomobello is the 8th Director General of NAPTIP. She succeeds Professor Fatima Waziri Aziz. Now, collective responsibility and behavioral change are two key pathways civil society and non-governmental organizations have identified as panaceas to curb social vices in the country. Ayodeji Makinde has details.
Terrorism, illegal mining, drug abuse, fake drugs, piracy, and oil theft are seen as threats to Nigeria's economic vibrancy. Here are members of the armed forces, heads of federal government agencies, including Director General of the NTA, Salihu Abdulhamid Dembos, represented CSOs and NGOs with statements of intent and consequences of anti-society actions in the country.
I want to assure you of NTA's sustained coverage of programming on several initiatives that have been put in place by government and other stakeholders in the area of job creation and entrepreneurship.
We should also have a rethink of what we can contribute to society, because many things that are going on in society, if the youth of the society is bad, the society is bad.
We don't partner with the Nigerian military by embracing them in your community in the area of information gathering, in the area of intelligence sharing. The quest for peaceful coexistence may remain elusive.
Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, represented highlights ongoing military operations against criminality and urged youth to shun crime in the country.
We must collaborate with the security agencies to monitor and protect oil installation. It is crucial to address the underlying issues of poverty, lack of opportunities in the Niger Delta.
Various speakers offered rays of hope to participants, especially the youth, ruling out opportunities created by federal government policies and the need to be attentive to wealth creation opportunities other than crime. The fourth edition of Vision 1 Leadership Development Initiative against the growing list of societal vices conferred honors on leading advocates who, through their policies, protect critical national assets and discourage youth from sliding into the deep but avoidable hole of crime. In Abuja, Ayodeji, Makinde, NTA News.
Now an engagement to find a template for effective service delivery in ministries, departments and agencies of government has held in Abuja, with a call on the National Assembly to improve its oversight functions as a critical mechanism for advancing government efforts at reducing cost of governance. Kelvin Ebonoaye reports.
Reducing high cost of governance, often an offshoot of wasteful spending of resources, speakers believe will free up resources to meet the needs of the people and ensure effective delivery on the mandate of the various MDAs. This conversation, facilitated by the New Era for Sustainable Leadership and Accountability Initiative, is focusing on how legislators can help ensure flexible financial regulations reform for effective public service delivery, with a clear mandate for civil society organizations and anti-corruption agencies.
There is a need for us to actually seek for a way of amendment of this financial regulation to exempt such agencies that fall within that area.
What we try to do is to ensure that once the spirit and the letter of the law is violated, then definitely the law is the law, and we have recorded a number of successes in that regard.
The engagement is expected to be a periodic endeavor to evaluate its impact on governance in Nigeria. In Abuja, Kelvin Ewonwaye, NTA News.
And this is where we end the news. Thank you for being a part of it. My name is Frama Panyi, and Courage Ogerehi has been the sign language interpreter.